But I find it bizarre to watch the right, like something goes wrong and they're immediately like, oh, the problem is that we have a woman fire chief, or we have a, people of color air traffic controllers. It's like, oh, that's just straight up racism. Like,
but it's a communication.
Wow, but
failure.
you've like somehow done a little loop-de-loop where you're like, oh, I think DEI is racist. Therefore, me yelling at black people in positions of power is not racist.
I mean,
like, it's bizarre.
But that's not the case.
In this video, Adam Conover exposes Tim Pool's pathetic defense live. And right from the jump, Adam calls out a pattern that's honestly impossible to ignore. The moment something goes wrong, the right immediately points the fingers at diversity. Woman fire chief, black air traffic controller, that must be the reasons things failed. Adam breaks it down for what it is, just straight up racism hiding behind buzzwords. And when Tim tries to brush it off as this half-thought about communication, Adam doesn't just let it off easy. He calls it straight up. He straight up calls it out. How the right flips logic upside down to make targeting marginalized people sound reasonable. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Adam Conover exposes Tim Pool's pathetic defense live.
I mean, the right wanted to elect Larry Elder to governor of California. The meme among all conservatives is that Clarence Thomas should clone himself and replace every other Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the rush to blame these infrastructure problems on.
So I would call that a failure of communication for sure. The issue,
call it racism,
but it's not the target. The target is people who are hired without passing, not the fact that they're black. So Charlie Kirk got a lot of flack for this because he said, I go on a plane, I see a black pilot, and I think, am I supposed to be worried?
Yeah, well, that's racist.
But the point he was making was he was calling you racist, dude. And you guys didn't get that. He said, you have created a situation where average people think you are hiring people who can't do the job based on race. And we don't want to live that way.
I mean, he's the one getting on the plane and seeing a black person and saying that person's not qualified. I don't get it.
That's not what he's saying. He says Democrats are intentionally hiring underqualified people based on race. Why are they putting us in a situation like this?
He's saying that if a black person is in the seat, it means they're unqualified. That's his assertion.
No, he's saying he doesn't know because he knows you are advocating for it.
I'm just listening to the words that he's saying. It seems pretty straightforward.
I would say that when the left and the right only listen to the surface level clips and arguments, they don't actually understand what the person is conveying. And so the argument then is Charlie Kirk is a racist, which is not true. Charlie Kirk's point on that plane was, let's just map it out 1, 2, 3. Democrats have created policies by which they will put people in positions of authority who don't have the same caliber degree or have passed certain tests because of race. We've seen policies where they will actually go down the list of top candidates until they get to a race. This creates a concern among people that that individuals are being hired without the capability based on race. That's the idea he's trying to convey. Not that he doesn't want to fly with the black pilot.
You think that when you think that in the time when we only had white pilots or white executives or white whatever, all those people were hired on merit. None of them floated through for some other reason, like
nepotism.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
there's
I bet some people gave BJs.
Yeah, exactly. The systems are like they already do that for everybody. So
but it wasn't based on race.
So for him to go in and say, when I see a black person, that's when I think that, not
because
when I see a white person.
Your policy is
then
racist.
That's racist on his part because he's only focusing on when the black people.
But it's because the policy is race based.
Alright, so this is where Tim just completely fumbles the whole argument. Adam's literally pointing out how absurd it is to look at a black pilot and immediately assume, oh, maybe they're unqualified because of DEI. And instead of attempting to push back on that logic, Tim does this weird deflection. Like, no, Charlie Kirk was calling you racist for making him feel that way. Like, bro, what? It's not just tone deaf, it's straight up warped. Tim's basically justifying a gut-level racist reaction as a logical consequence of diversity policies. Like, how is that not racism? The entire thing rests on the assumption that black professionals only got there because of their race. And that's exactly what Adam keeps drilling. That the bias is built into the framing. The white pilot doesn't get second-guessed, but the black pilot does? Yeah, that's racism, dude. And Tim tries to dance around it by saying it's not about race, it's about qualification, but only in reference to race? That's the trap. Adam sees it for what it is and calmly points out that you never hear people questioning white pilots or executives, even though plenty of them coasted through nepotism, favors, or yeah, as Tim awkwardly jokes, maybe even BJ deals. But somehow DEI is the threat?
The policy is race and gender based. And so the issue is not Charlie Kirk saying he doesn't like black people. He's saying Democrats are hiring people who are less qualified based on race. This is creating a concern for people, which we don't want to experience.
So the counter argument would be, if you have a system that has no black people in it, right? You have a pool of people doing the job that has no black people in it. That clearly is not based on merit, because, you know, black people are X percent of the population, and surely some would have gotten through if it was really based on nothing but merit. So some of the existing white people must actually not have gotten there via merit. It must be because of a race-based system. So instead, let's adjust the system so that we give everybody an equal opportunity. That is going to mean that there are going to be more black people in the system. Now that happens, he now gets on the plane, he sees a black person, and he says, oh, now it seems they seem unqualified to me. That's pretty straightforwardly racist.
I actually think that it was racist systems that kept out qualified candidates. What I would say to your argument is the only distinction between what you said and white nationalists is that you want a system to bring those people in, and white nationalists don't. So you both the left and the right agree that there is some kind of phenomenon where black people should be qualified and aren't qualifying. I disagree with that. I think that there were institutions throughout history that hampered the process by which minorities were able to go to schools to effectively get those degrees. It's very difficult. The liberal argument floats dangerously close, I think, to what white nationalists are hoping for. It's not to say that you're wrong or anything, but it's a similar argument. That is the implication. So I'll put it this way: Ben and Jerry's. Do you know what the 1350 is? They call it the 1350.
Is that a Ben and Jerry's thing?
Yeah. Not intentionally, but this was like, holy shit, brother. Like, maybe you shouldn't be tweeting this. The 1350 is a meme which references despite being 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of the crimes. And so that is a meme shared among white nationalists. Ben and Jerry's put out the exact same meme, but tried approaching it from a DEI standpoint. And this lit the fucking internet up with people mocking Ben and Jerry's, being like, holy shit, they've gone full white nationalist. They said, despite making up 13% of the population, black people make up 50% of the arrests. And the white nationalists said, you're correct, 100% correct. We agree with you on everything, and started cheering for Ben and Jerry's. And I was like, whoa, guys, don't take their arguments from them. Like, I think it's fair to say that there are racist, components of racism that have existed throughout this country for a long time. The solution would be colorblind hiring processes and educational benefits that target class and not race, because then you remove the racial component from the argument completely, instead of creating a racial argument for the white nationalists.
But if you admit that people in America are racist, you can't build systems that are completely blind to race. You have race continue. You have individual racists continuing to exert their power over the system.
And then Tim takes it even further into just straight up deflection territory. He tries to reframe the entire history of exclusion by saying, well, yeah, racism existed, but your solution sounds like white nationalism with extra steps. Like what? Adam lays out a super basic point, that if you had 0 black pilots in a system, clearly something other than merit was in play. So fixing the imbalance doesn't mean you're hiring less qualified people. It means you're undoing a rigged system. But Tim, instead of engaging with that logic, just starts tossing out buzzwords like race-based hiring causes resentment and we should be colorblind, which always sounds nice until you realize it's just another way to ignore systematic racism while pretending you're being fair. He even compares Adam's argument to white nationalist logic. Like, bro, what? That's straight up projection. And then it gets even weirder. Tim brings up the 1350 stat, tries to link Ben and Jerry's DEI messaging to white nationalist memes, and acts like the left is accidentally doing racism. It's such a lazy sleight of hand. Just muddy the waters until everyone forgets the original point. People are reacting with suspicion solely because someone is black. That's what Charlie Kirk said, and that's what Adam keeps pushing back on.
So what you do
So
is
you accept racism. You're just like, okay, yeah, racism will continue to affect every part of the system.
and we can mitigate it, right? So for instance, for hiring practices, when it comes to the hiring managers, they should have no access to the name or the race of the individual. It should literally be, here's the resume, here's their qualifications, is it a yes or a no? And what we do then is we should target class-based opportunities for the younger generations, meaning if we go, like, so for instance, I grew up in Chicago, heavily racially segregated. We had 47th Street was a dividing line where on one side it was all black. On the other side, it was largely white, but there was some Latino there. This created a lot of problems. Two different neighborhoods looking at each other like others. And if you were white and went to the black neighborhood, you got arrested. If you were black and went to the white neighborhood, the police wouldn't go near them because they were scared of being called racist. The gangs would come from the black side and rob people on the white side, creating a lot of anger where the white people would be like, it's black people doing it. And then I'd be like, I actually think it's a different community. It doesn't matter if it's white or otherwise. They just don't view as part of their community. So they don't care if they rob you. But if I robbed you, all the neighbors would get mad at me, right? The issue isn't the race, but this created massive racial tensions. If you went into that neighborhood and gave the black neighborhood a ton of benefits, resources, checks, or whatever based on race, brother, there'd be murders. It'd be fucking nuts, the racial tension you'd create. But if we do it based on income and class, then you'd have equal amounts of both neighborhoods now going to the same schools, making friends with each other. And then you're going to have one guy who's going to be like, yeah, I live on 46. And they'll be like, no way, dude, I live on 48th. Like, bro, you're south of 47th. Let's hang out, man. And now they're friends. They don't view each other as others. They don't feel like their taxes are going to one racial group. Instead, what's ended up happening is DEI programs have said it's going to be based on race. And so then you get, if you go to like Appalachia, for instance, these are the poorest of the poor, and they feel like what little they could have is being given away to other people based on race, and they're being left behind, which breeds racial animosity.
Yeah, I mean, the pitting of, poor white people against black people is like just part of the strategy of, the people in power, and they've always done it. And
liberal or
and
otherwise.
It's unfortunate to watch, it's unfortunate to watch the country like descend into that again. Racial issues are hard to tackle because we're very susceptible to it. And unfortunately, we've backslid into a period of white racial backlash again, where, the people around the country are they're just like, the Trump administration literally just treats any black person as unqualified and fires them from the federal government. Like, that's what Pete Hegseth is doing in the Department of Defense. It's just like out and out racism, it's like a racial purge of the government. It's really bizarre. They're trying to like resegregate the country.
Where did that happen where they were firing black people?
I don't know the names off the top of my head, but yeah.
That sounds not true.
Yeah.
Because I'll put it this way, even if it were true, it's so overt that
they're being really overt about it. Donald Trump is going on television and going, planes are crashing because of DEI. So but
DEI
really,
is a philosophy, is an ideology.
He's saying because there are unqualified air traffic controllers because they were hired because they're people of color. It's racist. He's racist. He's a racist man, and he's issuing racist policy, and the entire country's going along with it because we're in a period of white racial backlash.
When do you think he became racist?
I think he's been racist his whole fucking life.
So yeah, by the end of this debate, Tim's entire argument just falls apart. He starts off defending Charlie Kirk's racist logic, spirals into bizarre personal anecdotes about Chicago neighborhoods, and somehow lands on the idea that the DEI is to blame for racial animosity. Like, dude, what? Meanwhile, Adam keeps it grounded. He calls out the real issue here. This isn't about qualifications. It's about discomfort with seeing power shift even slightly toward racial equity. And when Tim tries to pivot into class-based solutions as a dodge for racial justice, Adam doesn't let him off the hook. He just nails it. We're in a full-blown wave of white racial backlash. And that's the thing. When your entire defense of fairness hinges on ignoring systematic racism, that's not neutrality, that's complicity. Tim didn't just lose this debate. He just revealed how far some folks will go to protect their biases and call it logic. And speaking of biases,
are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.